Tryon High School. He is a Mexican-born U.S. citizen. His family moved from Mexico to the family farm in Perkins when he was at the age of 9. His family farms over 2,000 acres of land. His dad's family has lived in the Perkins area south of the river since statehood. He plans to attend OSU in the fall and major in wildlife ecology and management. Today he's here to discuss a 4-H trip that he went on to the presidential inauguration. Only 6 Oklahomans were chosen to go to that inauguration, so he was one of those. He was excited about the trip because he was active in the presidential campaign. He started working for the campaign at the age of 16, making official campaign phone calls and canvassing, even though he was too young to vote in the election. So please welcome David Wall.
Hello, my name is David Wall, and on January 20th, 2017, I had the honor to go witness the 58th presidential inauguration of our 45th president. It was called Citizenship Washington Presidential Inauguration. There were 6 Oklahoma delegates selected. Each state, there were many states, there were about 30 of the states of the Union were there, and we had 6 people go. There was an application process. You wrote an essay on what patriotism meant to you. So I wrote the essay, sent it in, and on March 1st, I got accepted to go on the presidential inauguration. That was way before we even knew who the Republican nominee was going to be, or the Democratic nominee for that matter. So that was a long time before the November 8th. I got the fundraise for the trip. The cost was about $1,500, so I was able to fundraise and got a grant from several businesses and sponsors, including CREC. It was in Washington, D.C., which is the United States capital, where Congress and the President reside. The population was of about 681,000 people. And I just put in the voting demographics kind of as a fun fact. There's 3 electoral delegates, and they have voted for the Democrat every time since 1964. Secretary Clinton got 90.5% of the votes in Washington, D.C., and President Trump got 4.1%. So it's not really it's not a town that's really friendly towards the President. Because when I was there, I was asking a lot of people where they were from, and most of the people that were attending the inauguration were from Florida or other states around the Union. I didn't see very many that were from Washington, D.C., which I'm sure there were some. This is an aerial map of D.C. We didn't actually stay in D.C. We stayed in Chevy Chase, which is where a lot of senators and congressmen reside, and that's in Maryland. The trip was pretty good. We got there January 17th, 2017, and we had many workshops. We had speakers come in and talk to us, some that worked for the Obama administration, some that worked for the Bush and Reagan administration. We visited several museums, including the Smithsonian Natural History Museum, which I was able to pick, and the museum, which is a museum on news and the media. We had several workshops on the effect of media roles in politics and in the presidential election. And finally, the Friday of that week was the January 20th presidential inauguration. This is a picture of the 4-H Center. It's a really nice place. Many groups stay there. It's sponsored by 4-H. So that's the 4-H Clover and the U.S. flag. The rooms are really nice. They have 2 nice beds and a TV. That's my roommate Asher. He was from Cushing. It was 2 boys and then 4 girls, and they were from other parts of Oklahoma. And those 2 are our chaperones, Mr. Rhodes and Mrs. Rhodes. That's what the auditorium looks like. As I said, we had several speakers, and we even had a mock election, which was really fun participating in. We had a caucus process and then an election process. This is a view from Chevy Chase. It's a really pretty town, very green, many houses. A lot of the senators and congressmen live there. I didn't know where their addresses were, but I know they told us that that's where a lot of them resided. These are 2 churches from Chevy Chase, the Lutheran Church and the Cathedral. That's not the National Cathedral, although we did see that the day after the inauguration. This is us coming into D.C. We stayed in Chevy Chase, so we had a bus shuttle us to D.C. every day to do activities and museums. And it took about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the traffic. Usually it wasn't up to an hour, but we had a tour guide there, and he would explain to us different buildings and different things in the D.C. area. One of my favorite parts of D.C. is Embassy Row, and that's the Spain embassy. We saw the Iraqi embassy, Ukrainian, Russian. We saw tons of embassies. I tried to get a picture of most of the ones I could, but I got one of the, that's a good one, the Spanish embassy. And that's the EU flag up there with the Spanish flag. And the Mexican embassy. Thought that was interesting as well. This is a picture of the museum, which was one of my favorite museums we visited. It just talked about the media, and the interesting thing about it is it had pictures and newspapers clippings from all the way back in the 1500s to up to recent days. This is us outside the museum. That's the 6 of us. I'm the one on the far left. It said Free Austin Tice, which was he was some journalist that got jailed abroad, so the museum was trying to sponsor his coming back. The museum welcomes President Trump. This was one day before the inauguration, so they were trying to get everyone hyped up for it. Here's some souvenirs of the president, or what at that time was going to be the president, and they were selling all kinds of stuff. A lot of people brought the red hats, Make America Great Again hats, and they had all kinds of things. In fact, I brought a few souvenirs to show. At the 4-H Center, I bought this bobblehead. Donald Trump bobblehead. Yeah, I wanted to buy two, but Ash and I, we bought all the bobbleheads there. There were only 3 of them. He bought 2 and I bought 1. I got a Trump presidential hat with a signature on it. That was for myself. And I got this one for my dad, which just has a presidential seal and Trump on the back. It's a pretty nice hat. This was my favorite. And a t-shirt. I bought about 3 or 4 t-shirts. 1 I gave to my cousin and 2 I kept for myself. But there were street vendors everywhere, just all over selling the t-shirts. This was about $10, I think. But it was pretty fun. They had all kinds of things they were selling. In the museum, there was a part of the Berlin Wall. This is a brick actually from the Berlin Wall you were allowed to touch. And this is the tower from the Berlin Wall. So I got in and they took a picture of me. I thought it was really interesting being there and actually touching the Berlin Wall. This is a toppled statue of Saddam Hussein. And from the top of that museum had a balcony. We were able to look out into D.C. and this is the National Gallery of Arts. I thought that was a really cool looking building. I thought it was the Supreme Court at first, but then I looked it up and it was the National Gallery of Arts. And over there in the back, not the building on the road by the road, but the one in the back is the National Archives Museum. And right next to the museum was the Canadian Embassy, which I think was the biggest embassy we saw there. It was really big and had a lot of flags, Canadian flags. They have a banner of all the presidents. So I got a picture with the President Donald Trump one. And when we got back to the 4-H Center, we had a town hall forum, which is really interesting because they had 4 different speakers of different political parties, and they talked about media role in politics. This was the main, I guess you could say, genre of the 4-H presidential inauguration. And so we had I have pictures of them here. Is Ellen Morin. She was a White House communications director for President Obama, and then later on as chief of staff of the Department of Commerce. And they had Tim McBride. He worked for Reagan and Bush administration. And interestingly enough, he was a United Technologies lobby who got I don't know if you heard about it on the news, but the carrier jobs that President-elect Trump was able to save to going abroad. He was the one that was involved in making that deal with United Technologies. And Secretary Dan Glickman. I think he was one of my favorite speakers as well. He was a former Secretary of Agriculture with President Bill Clinton. And he said that for a while, he was saying, I don't know if he was joking or whether he was serious, but he said for a while he had more Secret Service agents than the president himself because of all the controversy he was involved in with certain things in agriculture. So he was talking to us about his experience. This was at D.C. and the Week chief. She's a PhD, and she worked in the Obama administration with the Health and Budget Department. Later on, we went to the memorials, which is one of my favorite parts as well. This is my favorite memorial, the Jefferson Memorial. As I see him, he was the one that opened up the Louisiana Purchase where Oklahoma was at, so I thought that's one of the reasons he's my favorite. So I got a picture by him. The Lincoln Memorial. And this is the FDR Memorial. Asher and I, my roommate, we got a picture behind the people getting at the bread line. And the MLK Memorial. Since it was a few days after the MLK Day, they had a wreath and certain things around flowers celebrating his day. finally, the next day was Inauguration Day, January 20th on Friday. So we got up about 4 a.m., we got all packed up, I got my coat on and my hat, because they were saying it might be raining and it was kind of cold, so we went down and we got into the subway. That's me before I got in the subway, metro. They had all kinds of security there. Finally, we got out, we walked a few blocks. There were already people at about 4:30 already selling souvenirs out there. So I was able to buy some more. That's us walking towards they divided us up in different gates, so we were walking to our gate. We had the blue gate. And that's some of the crowd and security they had there. They even had security on the roof. On this picture here, there were some snipers. I could see, because I have a great camera, it zooms in very well, so I could zoom in and see the snipers and security people up on the roof. That was one of my favorite things to do, zoom in and see stuff up on roofs and up in the Capitol. This is the blue gate. This was the people that were with us, not in our group, but that were in the same section as we were. We were all pushed through in this gate. We waited a while, about 30 minutes, I think, and finally we got to the place where they were doing security checkups. And it was funny because sometimes some security guards had different restrictions than other ones. Like ours was, she didn't let us bring in small umbrellas, but later on we did see some small umbrellas, so it depended on where you went through. And one of the girls that was in our group had her granola bar. She had to throw away her granola bar, but I didn't have to. So I was really happy because that was my breakfast. I shared some with her though. So. This is us up at the Capitol once we got in. We weren't super far back. We weren't behind the road into the Washington Monument, but we were up there right in front of the Capitol, which was pretty great because you could see a great direct shot of it. And that's Asher and I at the Capitol. That was about 5:15 or 5:30. And there were some security guards. I liked their uniforms, so I wanted to get a picture with one of them. They had all kinds of security: National Guard, Border Patrol, Coast Guard, D.C. Police. This is a great shot of the Capitol. I liked all the flags they had there of different times in history of the United States. These are more security guards and more of the crowd. At first, it wasn't very full, but as it went on, more people came in. Finally, it was kind of jam-packed right before inauguration started. We didn't have places to sit down, but we were able to stand. I stood most of the time, but some of the people got their ponchos and laid them out because it wasn't raining that bad, so they were able to sit on their ponchos. That's another shot of the Capitol. Mr. Rose, the chaperone, he let me wander around some. I didn't have my phone with me, so I couldn't go too far since I had broken my phone the day before the inauguration, so I had to use my camera most of the time. So I was able to wander around some, and I saw some people that I've seen on TV, some journalists that I've seen on TV before. I thought that was really interesting. That's more of the crowd. You could see a lot of red hats mostly. Most of the people that were in the crowd were Trump supporters. There were some people. There was one man there I talked to. He had a Hillary Clinton buttons, and he had already scheduled. To come here, so he came here anyways to watch the presidential inauguration. That's more of the crowd in the back. That was behind us. That's all the way back to the Washington Monument. One thing I like to do before it actually started, I would use my zoom and my camera and try to see if I could recognize anyone up there. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I thought one of those guys up there was Paul Ryan, but I might be wrong. So I was trying to zoom in and see who I could see. But up here, I zoom in and saw more security guards up on the roof. Took a picture of them. That's more of the crowd. That's about where we were standing at. This is the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. So I got a good picture of them. This is when they were filing in to sing before the actual inauguration started. Oh, there was a squirrel on one of the trees. I guess he wanted to see the inauguration too, so I got a good picture of him. He actually fell down and landed on a woman, so that wasn't very, I don't think that was fun for either the woman or the squirrel. This is a Brazilian TV network. Asher and I, we would see a lot of people, cameras. We saw Arizona TV, state TV, but we saw these. We noticed they were speaking a different language. Since I know Spanish, I went up and talked to them. And Portuguese and Spanish is somewhat similar, so I was able to communicate with them. And I asked him where they were from, and he knew English too. So he said they were from Brazil. And we were able to be on Brazilian TV because they needed some people cheering on. They said they were trying to get some people in there to take a picture of. The man in the poncho, now he's not part of the Brazilian TV network. It's just the woman in the camera, and he was also watching them. This was me during the inauguration. This was before it all started, but it was getting kind of cold for a while, but we were moving around, so it wasn't that bad. This lady, she was doing sign language. So she was, I thought that was interesting. I was able to get up closer than the rest of the group, get up there and see what else I could see. Now this picture, I was zooming in with the camera, and since I was kind of keeping up with some of the stuff that was going on in the campaign, I recognized the man with the sunglasses right below the red thing. He's Chief Strategist Steve Bannon. So I recognized him. I thought, I think that's him. So I took a picture of him, and I looked at it later, and I'm pretty sure that's him. He was over there overlooking before it all started. This was before they announced anyone. Some more crowds. Finally, this is when they started announcing people. It was really interesting because I could see they first announced some people with high-ranking offices, and then they started announcing some congressmen and senators, and we could see them all come in. I was able to see Senator Inhofe. Sadly, I wasn't able to see Langford. I was keeping an eye out for both of them. So I saw Inhofe, and he sat right by Bernie and John McCain. So I thought I liked both of that. You seeing all those men up there? And they started announcing the former presidents as well. Jimmy Carter and his wife was there. Former President George H.W. Bush wasn't able to make it because he was sick, but younger Bush made it, him and his wife, and Secretary Clinton and former President Bill Clinton. Now, most of them, Jimmy Carter and Bush mostly got applause, but Secretary Clinton and former President Bill Clinton, they got mixed reaction, not always applause. Some applause, but mostly not applauding. President Obama, though, and Michelle Obama, they got almost entirely applause. Finally, they brought in Mike Pence and his wife, Karen Pence, and he got sworn in, I believe, by Justice Roberts. So we could see the teleprompters pretty good. I could kind of make him out on the balcony. Not so well, though. I could see Mr. Trump's hair. That's one thing I could definitely see.
I saw that. What color was he?
He was. I could see that very well. And Vice President Pence was up there as well, and this was when he was getting sworn in. And finally, this is right before they announced President Trump. President Trump and Melania Trump were one of the last ones to come in as they were announcing them, and so this is before he got officially inaugurated. So Ashley and I, we were talking about the inauguration. We said, so Vice President Mike Pence was inaugurated before President Trump. So we were wondering what would happen if something were to happen up there, who would become president, because for a while it would have been Mike Pence and Obama. President Obama and Mike Pence was vice president. I don't know, but we were just thinking about that. But finally, President Trump got up there, and this is a picture when I took when he was announced out. I took a picture of it with my Trump campaign volunteer card. I got that for donating and doing some volunteer work. This was the third time I've seen President Trump. I had seen him in an Oklahoma State Fair at a rally, and again in Oklahoma City for another rally. So I was excited to see him again for a third time getting inaugurated. I really liked the speech. His speech got a great, from the audience, a lot of applause and cheering and USA chants, and it's a really good speech. We could hear it very well, and we could see the teleprompter, so we were in a great spot. Some people in the back, I don't know how well they could see it. I know they could hear it, but I don't know if they could exactly see everything going on. This is Asher and I, we took a picture right after Trump got inaugurated. We took our first picture in Trump America. That's what we said, so that's us up there, right after he got inaugurated. My camera died. Well, it was at like 1%. So I had another man I met there. He was from, I believe, Iowa. He was there, and he helped me out. I got his email, so he was able to send me some things and some pictures he took of Asher and I, too. So that was really nice of him. This is another picture right as we were all exiting and out. And this is us heading out of the inauguration. Finally, in conclusion, it was a great trip. I learned a lot about our federal government and politics and presidential inauguration. And the day right after, I bought 2 newspapers, a whole bunch of newspapers, in case maybe someday they're worth a lot of money. It's about 5 or 6 of them. And I found this Arabic newspaper, too, in one of the airports, so we bought this one, too, as well.
Let's express thanks today for
Thank you.